Most people are off by now. They're they're on their Christmas holidays, whether they're working or whatever. Although there are some people who, people who are working in shops and stuff or working in bars. They're often the things that you have to keep working in. You wanted to get to eat soon. Just got back from a family gathering. What's up? I had some family stuff and some friends gatherings over the last couple of days. I'm quite tired too, so I know how you feel. But I do hope you're able to chill out and have a lovely eat. Your voice is very calming. Thank you so much, Haley, and welcome in. It's always nice to hear. Mean mugging us right now. Hate you guys. Would you guys be threatened by me if I just came up like really close to you and was like, "You wanna go? Who the hell do you think you are, huh?" Not tonight, mate. You're too drunk, clearly. You're not getting into this club. You're not getting into this fire club. No wait, fire's actually a word. Some people use fire to mean good, like a good thing. You know what? I'm feeling these eyes off today. That's what I'm feeling. I'll back up a little though. It's a little bit too close. You know what? I'm gonna move that there, and move that there. There we go. That's a little bit better. Back up, or you will sneeze on me. Oh yeah, you're sicky. Oh, I hope you feel better soon, Haley. Hopefully by Christmas Day you'll be nice and fine again. But please don't sneeze on me. Please do not sneeze on me. I would not like that. I would not like that at all. It would be mean if you sneezed on me. No. I hope although your Christmas spirit is already broken. No, your Christmas spirit will be fine. I trust, I believe you'll be okay, Haley. I believe you'll be okay. You'll be up and at 'em. You'll be up and at 'em in a day. You'll be okay. Okay? You'll be okay. Hang on, let me head pat. There you go. A head pat. We're head patting you now. You'll be okay. But yeah, I'm slightly angry. I'm slightly very angry. Slightly just a smidge slightly massively angry. I was do you guys play Binding of Isaac? If you don't, it's a very fun little game. Started off as a flash game, but it's a roguelike. It's a roguelike. No, Fox, stop. I'm trying to explain why I'm angry. I can't be taken seriously if I'm being poked in the face. Fine, you can poke me in the face. You've played, yeah. So yeah, you guys might know weak head pats are your weakness. They're often mine too. But yeah, I was playing Binding of Isaac. 90% knows, folks. You win. What a disaster. Thank you, Zan, for the head pats. Very kind of you. You don't have a defeat emote. I should get a defeat emote. I want an emote of like Ruadh's like on his knees and he's like slamming his fist onto the ground. He's like, it's over. It's so over. Thank you, Fox. Okay, you know what, Fox? I'm happy now. Your eyes hurt and you had a rough day. Oh, well look. Haley, rest your eyes. Make sure you turn down the brightness of my stream. And be nice and cozy. Well, you know what? Take this stream as kind of a time to just relax and take a load off. Okay. But anyway, I was playing Binding of Isaac, and if you guys have ever played The Lost in that game, The Lost is a character that dies in 2 hits. Technically, it's 1, but oh, there I am. I have an item that allows you to die in 2 hits rather than 1, so it's good. But it's a very tough character to play. I'm not amazing at Binding of Isaac. You know, anyone can be amazing when they get a god run, but I got a really good run. My very first item was Mom's Knife, and it was already going crazy. Now I had never gotten any of the completion checks with the Lost. I'm not that good, as I said. But suddenly I got this god run where I beat the first boss. I beat the first big boss. Then I beat Mom. So for those of you who've played it, I'll just list. I beat Mom. I beat Mom's Heart. I beat Boss Rush. I beat Hush, which was crazy. I have to say, I was amazed I beat Hush, and I beat Angel Isaac. I didn't have a key to go to Mega Satan, unfortunately, but I decided to go for Delirium. Now Delirium's bullshit. Let me just say that. But I was a single hit away from defeating Delirium. I was a single hit away. And he turns into a character. So Delirium is a character that changes into a load of different characters. And as he gets lower in health, he starts spamming like on top of you if you're unlucky, and he will just automatically hit you. He'll turn into loads of different things. And like he'll do all their different attacks. I was moments away from killing him. Moments away. And remember, I was hit once during the fight, and I was avoiding everything. I only had one hit left. He turns into a character. One character that has a homing attack. And it's not a homing attack like, it travels and it hits you. Instead, it's a homing attack that just immediately hits you if you're in the way of it. The moment it happens. And he turns into this character. And before I can even register that he is this character, he's already launched the attack and he's already hit me. I'm so angry. I almost got like 6 completion checks with the Lost. But hello Pin. Hello Tallies. Hello Lassalot. How you guys doing? I was very upset. Very upset. This was me like moments after it. I felt accomplished for having such a good run, but to lose it in that moment, disaster. It's reading time. Oh, hello Claire as well. Hello. How you doing? Welcome in. I'm glad to see you. I'm glad to see all of you guys. It's nice to see you. I might try and get a stream in tomorrow as well, and maybe the next day for Christmas Eve. I have to get a karaoke stream. You're doing okay? That's good to hear. Wait, I might have already responded to that. Sometimes you just forget as a streamer. But I had an interesting... I was hanging out with friends. Recently. And the topic of consciousness came up. And I've since learned... And I kind of expected it. You're debating if you should go take a nap, but then you realize if you do, you won't sleep tonight. Time to find out about all the bad news that those sneaky nominalists have been getting up to. Well, you know what? Yeah, I would say hold off, Haley, for a little bit, and then try and get to sleep you can go to sleep a little bit early. But whatever. Maybe sleeping could be good for you, though. It's hard to say. It's hard to say when you're sick. Sleepy Roo, you blessed me even though I yawned. Thank you, what's up? But yes, we will find out what those nominalists have been up to. Mainly looking at the Reformation and Martin Luther this time around. But I was talking with my friends, and I have since learned that they are effectively eliminative materialists when it comes to consciousness. They believe in eliminative materialism, which in essence, and I didn't say this, I didn't think of it. I did not think of it. But I should have said to them, but you guys don't really believe in eliminative materialism. Because to believe in eliminative materialism, you'd have to be able to have beliefs in a moment in the first place. Have you read McIntyre's After Virtue? That seems like it might be up your alley. I have heard of that book. I heard it's very good. So I actually do want to. I feel like that is one I want to read. So I definitely recognize the name in the of both the author and the book. I've heard of it. I can't remember in what context though. Your eyes are hurting. You might go take a nap. You know what? Rest well, Haley. Rest well. I will bless your cute yawns. Thank you. What's up? It's always appreciated. You're a former Lutheran, so maybe you might have some interesting things to speak about this. Raised Catholic. Well, no wait, that doesn't make sense in my lore. Converted to Catholicism, along with the rest of Ireland. Current Latin Rite Catholic. Ah, I see. The churchlands have gotten to them. It's over. Oh no, Daniel Dennett. They're probably scientific realists too. That was discussed a little bit. That was just like one of them was literally like if something can't be measured, then it does like it almost doesn't exist. And I was, we were after a couple of drinks. You're not a Thomist though. Ah, I see. Oh yeah, because you studied it heavily. Oh no. Did you? No, I think you just said that you did theology as like a course. I can't remember exactly. Maybe philosophy in general. But I wanted to be like, hey, do you believe in the scientific method? Do you believe in the scientific method? And if they were like, yeah, I'd be like, how do you measure that, buddy? How do you measure that? But I was slightly tipsy. BA in philosophy, double minors in history and Catholic theology. That's really cool. Hang on, I need to unclick the chat box because otherwise every time I toggle, things are gonna go bad. This convo sounds like gibberish to me. It probably felt like gibberish to many of the people around. We also started talking about like Wall-E, like what's the major theme, and we were discussing things like, can communists really criticize Wall-E for when it's basically a post-scarcity society, and the humans have basically everything they want, and we obviously it's it's pro-ecology, which is based. It's also it doesn't see leisure as a good thing necessarily. Like all the leisure in the world is clearly not a good thing. It robs humans of it clearly seems to point towards some kind of virtue beyond that. Why is Wall-E being brought up? Wall-E was brought up because I think we were talking about AI at some point. We were talking about AI. Two of my friends work in that type of stuff, that area, data, like AI. One of them is literally working with AI, I believe, as like a. So it's very cool. You wrote a paper on AI and Martin Heidegger. Send that on to me, Tailies. I would like to read that. Oh no, I might have your name. Your prof wanted you to try and publish it. You can just send me like a Word doc with it if you haven't published it. Models are reality. The real world is made up. I was doing a master's in divinity. That's currently on hold while you transfer grad schools. I hope it goes well. I hope it goes well for you. You can blot it out. Sounds perfect. I can bring it up. During the next time I meet up with those friends, and I'll pretend to be super smart. These are my own original ideas. You're getting plagiarized, Tailies. Or Tallies. I keep seeing the first I or the first L in your name is as an I. But yeah, it was a fun conversation. What was I gonna say? I can't remember. Brain empty. Yeah, brain very empty right now. But yeah, we're going to be getting back into a reading of the theological origins of modernity. Ruadh, the internet thief. I sneak around your guys's internets and I steal your upload speeds because I need the upload speeds for my streams. Tallis comes from Thomas Tallis. He was a Renaissance composer of sacred polyphony. Was an alternative way to spell his name. Ooh, very cool. That's a really great. That's a really great name choice. And what about is it Clavier? Is it like a French name where you go Clavier, or is it Clavier? Clavier, Clavier. By Michael Allen Gillespie. So the Theological Origins. Um, yeah, I'm guessing I was correct on Clavier. Plagiarizing is hard to spell. Yeah, it's a tricky word. Kind of like necessary. You often see people mess up that one. It's from Bach's Clavier Ubuntu. This guy's just throwing out sounds at me at this point. I recognize Bach. I don't know about the other two. When last we left off, we left behind Petrarch. We left behind humanism and the development. Salutati, Vala. We left behind Machiavelli. All of those guys who took various different approaches when it came to humanism. All of them really putting human first in the choice between God and nature and man, putting man first, but taking different steps. Some of them putting the private life, looking for virtue. Some of them looking for immortality, or trying to deal with the issue of facing a seemingly uncaring, all-powerful God who can change his mind at any one time. Some of them simply going directly, like Machiavelli, going into the practical side of things, stating that the great statesmen are really the truly blessed, for they can commit evils, but as long as they do it in the greater good, effectively, to create and maintain their states, then they will be accepted by God. It's necessary to misspell necessary. Exactly. The way to remember it is a sleeve has one collar and two sleeves. That's how I always remember it. Then we moved over to... thank you, Harold. Thank you, Harold. Wait, no, why am I thanking you for poking... Ow. Ow. I thought it was a face hole for a second, but it was not. It was not. She came in here and poked me. You DM'd me the paper. Based. Thank you, Tallies. I will definitely take a read of that. Why do they get thanked? I thought it was a face hold, and then before I realized, she poked me in the face multiple times. Damn you, Haru. Damn you. One collar and two sleeves. Got it. Yeah, that's a good way to remember it. You get told. No, I tell most people, no, I messed up. The last time I messed up, you also caught that fox on the Discord. Drown check? Are you drown checking me, Haru? Where's my bottle of water? Where's my bottle? Oh, it's over there. Ah, it's so far away. Hang on. Ah. Thank you for the head pat, Tallies. But did you guys see the face I had when I left? I was like slack jawed. I was like, and then I was just being head pat. That was cute. That was really cute. They're very good friends. Banging out. No, leave me alone. Did I have fun? I did have fun. It was a lot of fun. We talked about a lot of stuff. There was none of that. There was no banging. Be good. I'm gonna BRB while you go take a walk, but you'll be around. Nice to thank you for coming back. Thank you for coming by, Tallies. Enjoy your walk. Hang on, I have to go get some water for my drown check because I don't think there is much. Claire, no, I don't want to be a cat. Okay, hang on. I'm gonna go get water. I'll come back and be a cat. And then we might get into reading. You and your friends are missing out. I was laughing as I read that. Lame. Some water splashed on my lap. I hate this. But now it is time for the drown check. Thank you, Haru. Okay, we got a cat, Rua. Okay, hang on, let me... What's this called again? Viado. Oh yeah, that's it. This nerd spilled his water. How dare you call me a nerd? How dare you call me a nerd, Gob? That's so mean. Hang on, I need... What do I use again to... Where's my Viado tube? This. Here it is. Oh wait, oops. I've put in multiple. Hang on. Let me remove these. Eh? Where? Oh, it's old Rua. It's old Rua. Look at that. It's old Rua. Hang on. Let me... Yo, talking about banging friends in your lap as well. Wads up. Wads up. Be good. Be good. Bold. Don't you smile at me like that. Don't you smile like that at me, Gob. Gob's emotes are very cute. I want to get a happy. I'll have to get on to... Oh no, she got like... attacked recently. she True. Oh, that's so cute. That's so cute. She has a few that I really like as well. I really like her happy. It's a very good happy. But hello, it's old me. Less detailed me. Oh wait, yeah, I remember I had an old hat. Why is this one so dark colored? Oh no. I clicked something. Oh wait, yeah, I remember I used to have a filter that would bring up the color on this. Oh yeah. Anyway. Maybe I should get that filter, because this is very... Hang on a moment. Let me do this real quickly to find the filter that I used to use. Because it's very low without it. Save that, and then come back down here, then do that. No, I don't think we're gonna get this. It's not gonna work. Anyway, I will see you guys. While Cat... Oh, wait, no. Oh, wait. I'm using Shoost too. Wait, hang on. How do I do this? I'm so lost. There we go. This is more complicated than I remember. White as a ghost. Listen, I'm Irish. Hey, the chroma key should... Oh no, wait, color correction. Whoa, that's really red. That's really red. Let's turn down the contrast a little bit. That's a little bit better, I think. I think that's better. You gotta update le cat. I'd definitely be down for updated cat Rua. Yeah, let me move myself down a little bit. I spend all that money for a really nicely rigged model to actualize myself in front of you guys, and you guys make me become a cat. Why didn't I just be a cat boy from the start? People probably would have preferred that. Definitely needs an update. Cat Rua cute. Well, you know, at least there's that. I don't have any of like the head pat stuff on this, so it's not gonna work if you head pat me. So don't do it. What you guys can do if you have access to the emote is you can head pat me that way. And you guys, when you guys would head pat me in this form, my ears would go down. My ears would like flop down and make space for your hand. But anyway, I like the... I don't know, I like the way the neck kind of slightly changes when I talk. But I believe I was talking about the book. before I started being bullied and made to take the form of a cat. Yeah, I'm going to just full screen the auto tube. I don't like the way it is. There we go. That's better. You should make that on the update. What, a head padding version? That would be cute. That would be pretty cute, I think. Although I don't know how I would do that, because the auto tube uses 2 images. You can talk and you can not talk. I don't know, maybe I just on the fly I could just have a hand and I just rub I just move it. Cat ear rubbing. No. Oh wait, I have to say nya, don't I? Nya. At the end of every word, nya. Or sentence, nya. If it was every word, nya, I would euthanize myself, nya. Imagine, nya, I had to talk. No, imagine, nya, I, nya, had, nya, to, nya, talk, nya, like, nya, this, nya. That actually like took brain power to do. The first couple of times it took brain power, but then afterwards it just started flowing. But I will be playing That Would Be Infuriating, yeah? It would be, yeah. So don't make me ever do it, yeah. I don't know, I mean, we all like cats, cat boys and cat girls, and we all like dog boys and dog girls. I do wonder, am I cat or dog coded? I mean, obviously I am a cat here, but I do wonder, because some people think I'm a different, like I kind of have a different feel. I really like the eyes on this. I never really, I mean, I've paid attention to it, of course, but the eyes are bunny boys. No, Haru, don't. You already drew me like that once, I'm pretty sure. Does Cat Rua like chin scratches? Yes. Yes, he does. He very much does. You're eagle coded? I'm gonna try and caca. No, does an eagle make a caca noise? I don't know what sound an eagle makes. Caca. That's a raven, Rua. Bunny Rua. Chicken Rua. Cluck 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 cluck. You guys come for the fox coded. I like being fox coded. I like that one. I like the fox coded one. Because I love foxes. I always, well, not always, but I often see them when I'm out walking. And they're so cool. They're so, sometimes I hear them yip. I hear them be like, eh. They're cute. They're cute little guys. And they're kind of like, I feel like some of them have seen me so much that they're like comfortable with me. They kind of just like walk. Like I had one before that kind of just walked right past me along the road. I almost felt like he gave me like a little nod. He was like, yo, what up, Rua? What up? How you doing? And then he just patted away. Alpha Wolf Rua. Wolf. Alpha Wolf Rua? Maybe. Definitely, definitely the alpha part. Yeah, definitely. Reject humanity. Embrace foxity. I'm just like, a fox is just a cat. Is just a cat on dog hard. Is like cat hardware on dog software. I've heard it described. Which I like that description. They're very cute. I want to pet a fox sometime. I don't think I should try and pet the wild foxes around me though. That they probably wouldn't let me, and even if they did, I'd probably just get bitten and get a disease. And that's the last thing I want to happen. Or I could become a werefox. Imagine that. Imagine. You know, imagine you're like a girl and you're big into like all the werewolf boys, and like you find one finally. You find someone who's a were animal, and you're so excited, and then he just becomes a little fox, and he's just running around the room. It's like you pictured this big, strong, manly wolf. He's just a little fox guy, just just yipping and yapping and peeing on your stuff in your room, marking his territory. Because that's what I would do as a fox. I would mark my territory everywhere. Big, strong, manly wolf. Okay, that does not make much sense. Big, strong, wolfy wolf. That makes sense. That makes sense now. Although I'm going to be honest, the last wolf I saw was not very manly. And that was that's another VTuber wolf. He's an ASM artist. He is one of those femboys, as they call them. But with that said, let me get on to my book reading for today, and maybe help you guys get comfy and relaxed. Femboy. The only reason why I currently look like one is because I am a cat, and because you drew this, and you did this. Wait, yeah, you did this, Haru. That's the only reason why that is even possible to say. The current me is manly and strong, and he smells like tar oak power punch. Yeah, that's what he smells like. Tar oak power punch. And he uses 5-in-1 grand. I don't know. I mean, I did sometimes jump. I was sometimes lifted during the line out. So the line outs, for those of you who don't know, is the part in rugby when the ball goes out of bounds and they line up and they throw the ball in and they lift the guys up. I mainly did the lifting, so I was mainly grabbing people's butts if I was behind. But I would jump sometimes. So I would have people grabbing my butt to lift me up in the air. They'd also grab your legs. So there was actually a very specific way you do it that allowed you to get up there nice and quick. I remember one time we played against a team that made their calls in Irish. And we didn't have the best Irish on our side. But what they would do for the lineouts, you'd often have calls for lineouts because they're very set piece, so they can be very good for making a break. But rather than do anything special, they went a hain, a doe, a tree, a car, a cuig. They counted, and that's literally just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in Irish, and then they would jump. I remember when we realized, we just started laughing because we started timing them perfectly. We beat them. It was a pretty good game. He pushes the Ruadh probably a semi. He pushes the small wolf boys up against the wall. You still remember that reel? Oh, I know the one you're talking about. The one, yeah, that showed a lot. That showed. Listen, rugby shorts are short. That's all I'm saying. But let me get into the book and start reading and getting comfy and cozy. Where did we leave off? I think we left off right here. We were learning all about hang on, let me excuse me. To eep, hopefully. You want some whisper reading? Okay. Okay, I'm going to talk whisper like this. I assume this is loud enough to be heard. Okay, you know what? I've also been a cat boy for long enough. There I am. I'm back. And thank you for blessing me. Luther's new view on human beings. I'm actually going to turn off the gain just slightly. Luther's new view on human beings. Luther
Luther's radical transformation of theology had a decisive impact on his view of man. In nominalistic fashion, Luther sees humans not as a species but as individuals who are distinguished from the animals by speech and not by shape or form or any other activity. In this respect and to this extent, he remains within the Aristotelian tradition. However, he quickly diverges from this Aristotelian beginning, for he identifies speech not with reason, but with a capacity to apprehend the word. Reason in the traditional sense is in fact merely a manifestation of a false human pride that arises out of fallacious belief in a human power. Humans by nature are not free and powerful as earlier humanists such as Pico, for example, imagined them to be, but the slaves of Satan without any real power of choice or decision. Only through the Word, through God's gracious infusion of faith, can they escape their bondage to the devil. This escape, however, does not lead them to freedom, but into subjugation to God. If you disappear for good, you are asleep. I hope you become sleep. Stop. Or WhatsApp. No, WhatsApp. I called you WhatsApp. While human beings, for the most part, are enslaved to Satan, they are generally aware of this fact. Driven by pride and exercising their reason, they believe they are acting in their self-interest, when in fact they are only fulfilling Satan's purposes. Evil in Luther's sense is thus not concupiscence or any other form of bodily desire, but rather disbelief and fear of death that produce either a desire to live sensuously in the moment or to strive for immortal fame and glory. So you can see it's radically different to the humanists.
Whisper reading is actually kind of surprisingly sore, so I'm going to go back to my normal talking. It's not sore, it's just straining. Both of these misguided forms of willing drive humans away from God and into themselves, that is, into the arms of Satan. They can only be released from the lordship of Satan by hearing and coming to believe in the Word. Such fate makes them into new beings, they are reborn in the spirit, according to Luther, and henceforth are dominated not by their fallen satanic will, but by God's will enacting in and through them. Human being in this way becomes a God-infused being. This rebirth does not lead to perfection. The desire for perfection, in Luther's view, is a reflection of the pride that leads humans to believe they can master their faith. Such pride characterized those ancients and their humanist imitators, who sought moral perfection, as well as those of Jews and Christians, who sought to live perfectly according to the law. Luther believes that both of these paths are impossible for imperfect human beings. The law is a standard of perfection, but a standard that for the very reason can never be attained. Its principal purpose is to humble the will by revealing the inability of all human beings to live up to the law, and thus their unworthiness of salvation. The law is thus God's gift to help us prepare for repentance, according to Luther. The inability to abide by the law and the guilt and despair that this failure engenders are the first steps on the path to a truly Christian life, in Luther's view. Recognition of sin is the beginning of the search for forgiveness that leads to Christ. Christ, Luther repeatedly argues, is not for the saints or for the righteous, but for sinners. For those who have recognized imperfection and unworthiness and thrown themselves upon him and his mercy. The great learning and talents of this ancient philosophers were thus actually impediments to salvation. They came to believe that they could lead perfect lives by their own efforts. They thus did not find their ways to Christ, for it is not excellence but despair that leads to salvation. Despair is the precursor to the recognition of the radical difference between God and man, and the recognition of God's graciousness in redeeming us from our fallen humanity by the sacrifice of Christ. Christ crucified is thus the basis for salvation. So you can see a radical break with the scholastics, who believed not just that humans all things aimed towards perfections, but specifically humans also aimed, and often as being a unique thing within the material world, being having a soul, having a mind, would often strive towards a higher form of perfection, and have a certain teleology, a kind of human nature that could be discovered, and the best actions for that. And as well, the humanists and the moralists, and those who believe that they could master themselves. Luther thinks, no, you guys have deceived yourselves. The inability to abide by the laws and the guilt and despair that this failure... Oh wait, hang on, I read this. Faith is belief in the resurrection of Christ, but such a belief can only arise through the infusion of grace. Such an infusion, however, is nothing other than the transformation or transubstantiation of our humanity. Quote, by faith we are in him, and he is in us. This bridge room, Christ must be alone with his bride in his private chamber. Wait. Oh, sorry. This is a quote from, I think, the Bible. Yes, John 6:56. By faith we are in him, and he is in us. This bridegroom, Christ, must be alone with his bride in his private chamber, and all the family and household must be shunted away. But later on, when the bridegroom opens the door and comes out, then let the servants return to take care of them and serve them food and drink. As a result, man becomes one with Christ. Christian righteousness is that righteously by which Christ lives in us, not the righteousness that is our own person. Therefore, when it is necessary to discuss Christian righteousness, the person must be completely rejected. For if I pay attention to this person, or speak of the person then, whether intentionally or unintentionally on my part, the person becomes a doer of works who is subject to the law. But here Christ and my consciousness... Wait, where did that line go? But here Christ and my conscience must become one body, so that nothing remains in my sight but Christ, crucified and risen. The person does indeed live, but not in itself or for its own person. Again, Luther is very radically different. What's happening? There's, I don't know, what's the haps, Clever? Welcome in. We're just doing a little bit of reading. I know I started a stream yesterday. No, was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. No, it was 2 days ago. Something with Luther again. But I accidentally forgot that it was my friend Daya doing his last dialogues. It was 2 days ago, and I wanted to join, so I joined for a little bit. He was mostly reminiscing about all the fun conversations we had on those streams, which took ages, but I managed to join in the end too. This is not a mere conjunction, but a true marriage. For Luther, Christ is my form, which adorns my faith as color as light in a wall. As light adorns a wall. This fact has to be expounded in this crude way, for there is no spiritual way for us to grasp the idea that Christ clings and dwells in us. No spiritual way for us to grasp, as closely and intimately as light and whiteness cling to a wall. Christ, he says... Oh, sorry. This is a quote within a quote. That's messy. Christ, he, Paul, says, is fixed and cemented to me and abides in me. The time that I now live, he lives in me. Indeed, Christ himself is the life that I now live. In this way, therefore, Christ and I are one. The human and fallible remains, but I, this new I, is also there, is God-like. I do indeed live, and yet now I live, but Christ lives in me. There is a double life, my own, which is natural and animate, and an alien life, that of Christ in me. As a result of this doubling, the individual who is justified by faith does not thereby transcend humanity. He remains a sinful human being, but at the same time is much more than this. He is in fact the divine will. On this point, Luther was unwilling to follow the path of the more radical reformers, who believed that justification produced perfection and saintliness. Luther was convinced rather that the natural vices, the old Adam, remains in us, after we have received faith. The unified work of faith includes not merely justification, but the work of putting the old Adam to death and controlling the flesh. What Luther sometimes calls as sanctification. This purgation of the old Adam is facilitated by works of charity and penance, for it is necessary to place a burden on the old man to keep him in line. These works reduce the body to subjection and purify it of its evil lusts, so that the body may join in loving and serving others. Serving others for Luther is not as easy as it might first appear. The principal goal of human life is scripturally determined by the first commandment, to love your Lord, your God, with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your soul. Such love, as we have seen, is only possible for those who are infused with grace, according to Luther. Such people become the dwelling place of the universally loving divine will. Only those who in this way fulfill the first commandment can fulfill the second commandment, loving one's neighbour as oneself. For Luther, there is thus no human love or moral action apart from divine action. If human beings are not under the denomination of God, they are under the denomination of the devil. And in this state, they are capable only of self-love and self-seeking. Without the love of God, there is no love of the neighbour, and consequently no real charity or service to others. In the absence of such love, humans are driven by pride and self-interest, both of which bring them into conflict with others. Thus, for Luther, the natural condition of the world is chaos and upheaval. Almost very, not Thomas Aquinas, sorry, the guy who wrote Leviathan. Why can I not think of the name? Hobbes, Thomas Hobbes. Very Hobbesian, with the state of nature, nasty, brutish, in short. This vision of the world as beset by chaos was not unique to Luther. Indeed, as we saw above, it was a prominent trope in Petrarch in humanism. For the humanists, however, the solution to such upheaval was the application of the human will to master the forces of chaos, again putting the human before man or God or God or nature. This involves the effective joining of knowledge and power in the manner Machiavelli perhaps most clearly delineated. Luther sees this entire line of thought as misguided. At best, it produces only peace, but not love, and certainly not salvation. Indeed, the desire for peace may actually undermine salvation, for the proclamation of the word causes conflict, especially in the last days when Satan rages against the world. Thus, the attempt to establish worldly peace may only be possible by the suppression of the gospel. This does not mean, of course, that the government is unnecessary, or that we can dispense with it. It is true for Luther, no government would be necessary if everyone were truly Christian. Now, since no one is by nature Christian or righteous, but altogether sinful and wicked, God through the law puts them all under restraint, so they dare not willfully implement their wickedness in actual deeds. The law tells men what they ought to do, and what governments should permit and disallow. If this were not so, men would devour one another, seeing that the whole world is evil, and that among thousands there is scarcely a single true Christian. No one could support wife and child, feed himself, and serve God. The world must be reduced to chaos. God establishes rulers to, quote, make a contribution in both family and society to the survival of the world and the struggle against chaos. Princes are appointed by God, and they rule by force because wickedness must be restrained. So again, I think we're almost seeing the beginning of the hierarchy, the kind of justification for the various people like Gustavus Adolphus or Henry VIII, why they might lean towards a kind of Protestantism, or what became of that, If someone tried to rule the world by the gospel alone, he, quote, would be loosing the ropes and chains of the savage wild beasts and letting them bite and mangle everyone, meanwhile insisting that they were harmless, tame and gentle creatures. It is important in Luther's view to be realistic about humanity. In his view, there are four kinds of people: the truly religious who do not need law, the falsely confident and lazy who use freedom as an excuse for sin, and who consequently must be guided by law, the truly wicked who must be held in check by law, and the immature in faith who can be helped along by the law until they learn to distinguish right and wrong. Both spiritual and secular government are thus needed for all but the true Christians, and even these Christians, loving their neighbours, recognize the need for government to avoid chaos. The fact that a fallen humanity needs to be ruled legitimizes political authority, not tyranny. Subjects and rulers, in Luther's view, have reciprocal duties. The Christian submits himself to his ruler and laws because he knows it is the will of God. It is his duty to serve the prince in all matters that do not violate his Christian duty. This, in Luther's view, includes the duty of the subject to serve in a just war, even plundering and devastating the enemy according to the prince's orders. Secular authority, however, can only rule over externals, and consequently, no one can legitimately be compelled to believe. In matters of conscience, the subject need not obey the prince, but even in these cases, he or she cannot act in any way that produces civil unrest. Resistance in such cases is limited to non-compliance. That is very Hobbesian, very Hobbesian. Hobbes very much argued against ever rebelling against the tyranny of the Leviathan, effectively, even if they were to become tyrants. Because Hobbes lived through the English Civil War, and he saw many horrific things, and I think for Hobbes, his big thing was attempting to avoid that situation, avoid, for him, humanity falling into the state of nature, back into that chaos, almost similar to what Martin Luther's kind of hinting at here. Or not hinting at, but getting at. They fear this state of nature, this wickedness, so much. Ooh, let me turn off the ads. Julius Stapp? I've never heard of this person. That's a brand new name for me. Let me very quickly check if there's any good notes. Not that I can see. Julius Stahl? Still doesn't ring a bell, I apologize, clever. Later on moat individual rights. I see. Luther's strong support of secular authority does not mean, as is often assumed, that he was an uncritical authoritarian. He drew clear distinctions between better and worse princes. Indeed, on secular authority, he describes most rulers as foolish and malicious tyrants. Quote, "For God the Almighty has made our rulers mad. They actually think they can do, and order their subjects to do, whatever they please. They thus presumptuously set themselves in God's place, lording it over others' consciences and faith. Wise princes are very rare, and pious ones even rarer. Princes, quote, are generally the biggest fools or the worst scoundrels on the earth." This fact notwithstanding. This is fact notwithstanding. Obedience in secular matters is necessary for such a world as this deserves such princes, none of whom do their duty. The world is too wicked and does not deserve to have many wise and pious princes. Frogs need storks. What does that mean? 107. Is there an explanation for why frogs need storks? I've never heard that one. But, quote, "The common man is learning to think, and the scourge of princes, that which God calls contemptum, is gathering force among the mob with the common man. I fear that there will be no way to avert it, unless the princes conduct themselves in a princely manner, and begin again to rule decently and reasonably. Men will not, men cannot, men refuse to endure your tyranny and wantonness much longer. God will no longer tolerate it." No, you got my nose. Get away from me. How dare you, Fox? How dare you? I'm trying to read here. And I'm not looking at the screen, and you're getting your pokes in. I'm pretty sure you got directly on my nose too. You guys are gonna poke in my nose. You're gonna misalign it if you keep poking my nose like that. The world is no longer what it once was when you hunted and drove the people like game. Therefore, a prince must make himself useful to subjects, protect them and secure peace, and not seek his own advantage. Luther was no revolutionary. He was convinced that human beings were so sinful that God alone could reform government. He also believed that he lived in the last days and that such reforms were simply unnecessary, since the time until the end was so short. But finally, and most importantly, his goals were simply otherworldly. He aimed at salvation and not at improvements of life on earth. Thus, for Luther, religious purposes supersede all political or moral purposes. Doing, he argues. Wait, 95%? 95? That's a... You got a lot of nose pokes in there. I'm impressed. I'm impressed with that number of nose pokes. Fair play. Fair play. That's a lot of nose pokes. Are you counting the pokes? Are you counting the pokes? I can't believe this. I wonder what your average will be in like 10 streams. If you keep it above like 80%, I'll be very impressed. You're just that good. You're just that slick and powerful. Fair play. Doing, he argues, is one thing in nature, another in philosophy, and another in theology. In nature, the tree must be first, and then the fruit. In moral philosophy, doing means a good will and right reason to do well. This is where the philosophers come to a halt. Therefore, we have to rise higher in theology, with the word doing, so that it becomes altogether new. For just as it becomes something different when it is taken from the natural area into the moral, so it becomes something much more difficult when it is transferred from philosophy and from the law into theology. Thus it has a completely new meaning. It does indeed require right reason. I'm like that guy from Monty Python, The Life of Brian. It does indeed require white reason. It does indeed require right reason and a good will, but in a theological sense, not in a moral sense, which means that through the word of the gospel I know and believe that God sent his Son into the world to redeem us from sin and death. Here doing is a new thing, unknown to reason, to the philosophers, to the legalists, and to all men, for it is a wisdom hidden in a mystery. The bishop from The Princess Bride. Maggie. Mag. Wait, no, I don't know how to do this. Marrig is what wings us together today. Probably not as good as I could have done. Hello, Tallies. I hope you enjoyed your walk. Hello, Marin VT. Welcome in. Thank you so much for the raid. Hello. It's nice to meet you. Hang on, let me very quickly shout you out. Eh? Oh wait, no, I have to go at Marin VT. Hello everyone. My name is Ruadh Uaquilta. I'm a half-human, half-Tuatha. That is the god people of Ireland. They existed in Ireland before the Gael arrived, according to ancient mythology anyway. I mainly read books. I also play a couple of games here and there, or I do reading streams, such things like that. Currently we're reading a book at the moment as a kind of ASMR, all about the theological origins of modernity. Hello, thank you for the shout out. Of course, Marin, thank you. Welcome in. I hope you guys had a nice stream. What were you guys doing? What were you guys up to? And hello, Silence Speaks VT. You love the model design. Thank you. Hang on. I just realized actually I've been doing this whole stream and I haven't even had my book up. But let me get a little bit of distance for you guys to have a better view of it. Hang on, I'll zoom in. There we go. I think people like me being close, people like me being not too close. I don't want to intrude on your personal spaces. But I've been doing this whole reading stream and I haven't even had my book open. I've just been reciting it from memory, guys. I'm that smart. But welcome in. Hello. Hope you guys had a fun stream. What were you up to? Just memorize the whole book. Exactly. I pick up a book, I skim the pages, and I can just recite it all to you guys without making a single mistake. Sometimes I will go into a lisp. Apparently, I'll say something like "White Weason," and I'll become the guy from Monty Python. Although I don't have a friend named Biggest Dickus. Although perhaps my friend Son Albionus may know someone called that. He is a Roman after all. But welcome in. I hope you guys are having a lovely time. You are fiddling around with some ASMR on your end, continuing the trend. Ah, I see. I hope you had a nice. Were you doing kind of traditional ASMR or like BFE or reading or something, or were you just kind of having a nice cozy chat with people? That's perfect. I guess if you guys would like a quick idea on what this book is about, it is a relatively heavy and very dense philosophy and theology / history book. More traditional, just starting to get into it. Ooh, I hope you enjoy it. I'm not gonna lie, it's very awkward at the start, and I took ages to be happy with how my sound was. I do traditional ASMR as well, but I don't do it as often as I'd like. But I definitely want to do more of it. But I will certainly try and check out your don't you sus me, laughs a lot. I'll definitely try and do more, but I'll definitely check your stream out. I always like meeting new people. Welcome in, Silence Speak VT. Thank you so much for the follow, very much appreciated. So to give a very brief overview of the book, basically Michael Allen Gillespie argues that all of modern thought, from the Protestant Reformation all the way up to the Renaissance, Protestant Reformation, all the way up to the modern day with its very much scientific worldview, can be traced back to a singular debate seen in the High Middle Ages between the nominalists and the wait, what's that? Thank you so much, Marin, for the gifted sub. That's so sweet of you. Thank you. There's no reason to do that. Thank you so much. Between the nominalists and the realists, those who believe in universals and those who don't believe in universals. That being the nominalists. But yeah, no. I'm ruining your percentages. No, I thought I could move more that way. You just have to poke me in front of the raiders, huh? You just have to poke me in front of the raiders. How dare you? So mean. But yeah, thank you so much, Marin, for the raid, and thank you again for the gift sub as well. Very much appreciated. Hello, Calypsy. Ooh, Calypsy VT. I like that name, Calypsy. I think I just like things that have calyps. Like, I think I just like that sound. You were still 85. I think you're overcounting. Well, maybe not. I did kind of get stuck in an area and you were catching me. But I will get back into the reading. Let me take a quick sip of water. So feel free to listen in on the book if you would like, if you want to have me on in the background. I hope you enjoy. And if you want to fall asleep, well, I think heavy philosophy and theology is certainly good at putting people to sleep. But let me come a little bit closer. There we go. Where were we? Here we are. As a result, the church for Luther is much more important than the state. The true church, however, is not the papacy and the curia, but the congregation of true believers, or Luther called the invisible church. The visible church is always a mixture of saints and hypocrites, of whom only a handful stand fast until the end. In the true church, by contrast, all men are priests and staunch in their belief, even if all of them were not able to minister and interpret Scripture. The true church for Luther is thus made up of all those persons in whom God has infused his grace, in whom he has come to dwell. We're currently reading all about Martin Luther and the Reformation, so... Oh, Luther. Even among true Christians, there is need of an institutional church and religious practices. The old Adam remains strong and must be constantly combated. Thus, even if the church will only existed for the elect, it would be necessary that it continue to offer services which include not merely preaching but also sacraments, prayer, music, etc., in order to further the sanctification of those who had already been justified. Sacraments for Luther play an especially important role in this process. On this question, Luther adopts a middle position between Catholic tradition and radical Protestants. He rejects some of the traditional sacraments as lacking a scriptural foundation, but he accepts the most important. By far the most important is the Eucharist. The man who made you leave Lutheranism? I'm sorry, hang on. Luther made you leave Lutheranism. Man, Lutheranism is struggling. Hello, Dee. Hello. How's my favorite angel girl doing? How you doing, Dee? You must lurk. Gotta go touch grass. Touch all the grass. Lie down in the grass and roll around and get all grass stains on your clothes. Enjoy your grass touching. And hello, Yue. Hi. How you guys? How are you? Luther had some really fascinating scandals during his life, if nothing else. Well, I know about the papal bull and all that type of stuff. Thank you so much, Nix Thea. I was reading the TH as a wrong. Nix Thea VNL. Thank you so much for the follow. Welcome in. He sanctioned a bigamist marriage at one point, which got him in trouble with the whole German Diet. For the Count of Hesse? What the? I've never heard of that. Luther, what are you doing? You're doing good. How are you, lovely? I'm very good. Thank you. And don't call me lovely in front of chat. Actually, no, do. Thank you. I hope you're having a nice day. I hope all of you guys are having a nice day, especially in the lead up to Christmas. I hope everyone's ready for Christmas. You got all your presents. Or if you're not at the point where you need to buy other people presents, I hope you get a bunch of good presents. And I hope you guys have a lovely Merry Christmas. Whoa, follows are pouring in. Hello, Yushka 8. 8 Yushka 8. Welcome in. Blushing Ruadh is so cute. I should know it. That's not the toggle I meant to do. I meant to do this. But I should have toggles. I was preparing to do it. But I should definitely set up stuff that allow you guys to like activate this for like a little while. You don't celebrate Christmas, unfortunately? Ah, I see you. Well, usually most cultures have some kind of end of year celebration thing. Cat ears, Ruadh. Well, we do have cat Ruadh, but maybe I should get the cat ears. Could definitely look into that. His attempt to remove the epistle of St. James from the Bible was also a big failure. Well, I'm not as much of a biblical scholar or historian, so I can't speak as to why they may not want him to remove that, like what areas that would involve. But yeah, it seems like that period was just quite the mess. You don't have any celebration except New Year's, obviously. Oh, okay. Well, I hope New Year's is fun at least. I hope it's a nice time for you. Yue. He just had some wacky plans that didn't pan out, yeah. And then all of Europe went up in flames because of him for a while. All of him and his 95 theses. He couldn't have just had like 20? And then there was it Sippa? So it was something like that. The guy who had like 600 or something. His spat was Erasmus has also resulted in some of the funniest mudslinging in 1500s Europe. Ooh, I don't know much about that stuff, so I'm gonna have to look that up. That sounds very fun. I imagine they were very like just mean to each other, just writing like they were like this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, when they were both very, knowledgeable men. In contrast to the more radical Protestants, Luther argued that the actual transubstantiation of the bread and wine took place in the Eucharist and that the ceremony was not merely a symbolic act. The real transubstantiation was decisive in his view as a foundation for the possibility of man's own transformation through grace into a repository of divine will. If the Eucharist were merely symbolic, then our own transformation would not really modify our nature. We would be left as human and therefore as lost as before. Our salvation thus depends crucially upon the capacity for God to transform the host, for Christ to be present in the host as he is present in us, not in a spatial sense but through a mystical union. The miracle of the Eucharist can thus be expressed and ordered, but not fathomed, just as our own transformation through grace and faith cannot be understood. The theological content of the divine service is thus a central reenactment of the basic truth of Christianity, that Christ is God and that Christ is man, and that human beings can become godlike through Christ's entrance into their soul. The liturgical aspect of the worship service and the sacraments themselves are another manifestation of the Word. They, like the written and spoken word, do not present a rational argument, but a rhetorical appeal that is meant to move the heart, to infuse the heart with Christ. For Luther, the same is true of music, that in his view is God's greatest gift at our theology. It is another form in which the Word comes to dwell in the soul, another means of divine persuasion. You feel so uneducated in the topic? Well, maybe this book can help you learn a little bit, although it's often referencing things that I don't know much about either, so don't worry. When you read a lot of this stuff, really the more you learn, the more you feel like you don't know, genuinely. And from him we got the delightfully titled "Against the Murderous Thieving Hordes of Peasants," when the German counts attributed the mass peasant revolts to Luther's separation from Catholicism. Ah, yes. I mean, I think the book mentions that they expected him to take up the mantle, all of the peasants who were rebelling, and who was it again? Who was the main leader of that? He was very charismatic and he led them all, and he literally believed that they were divined by God, and he led this army of peasants against trained knights, and they were all slaughtered, unfortunately. Thomas Munzer, that was it, Munzer. I couldn't remember the name. There's so many Thomases. It's Thomas Aquinas, Thomas Hobbes, Thomas Munzer. There's so many. Hello, Pip. Welcome back. Nice to see you. Let me take another sip of water. Miss anything? Well, I mean, I missed a couple of pages of the book. We got a raid earlier from Marin, so that was very kind of them. But nothing too important. We were talking about maybe I should get cat ears or something, or allow you guys to do certain expressions on my face through things. Thomas Cromwell, Thomas Cranmer, St. Thomas More, Cardinal Thomas Wolsey. Yeah, Thomas is a very, very liked name, it seems. Luther's view of nature as incarnation. In keeping with his nominalist beginnings, Luther rejected both the Aristotelian and Neoplatonic understanding of nature. Nature is God's wonderful creation, given by God's grace and operating under its own rules. These rules, however, do not conform to the categories of Aristotelian logic. There are no orders of perfection in nature, stretching down from God down to the least of his creatures. The central religious truth in the incarnation, and this is the indication that everything bodily comes from God, and even the lowest and most despicable things. All things are thus sacred. Ooh, you would look adorable with cat ears. I think most tubas would look very adorable with cat ears. Hello, Chustafan. Welcome in. I hope I'm pronouncing that well. Thank you very much for the first time chat. It's very nice to have you. This becomes gradually clear when we examine Luther's so-called tower experience more closely. In describing this experience, Luther actually says that the Holy Spirit came to him while he was on the toilet, performing what Roland Bainton in his famous biography euphemistically and with some embarrassment calls the daily task. Since this closet was in his tower, scholars have generally assumed he was referring to the tower itself. unable to believe that Luther was in fact speaking of something so mundane as the toilet, especially since the toilet in Luther's time was generally considered an unclean, unholy place, loved by the devil. Since Freud and Erikson, the connection of Luther's insight to the movement of his bowels has been given center stage in order to interpret Luther's great insight as a manifestation of neurosis. However, both the attempt to conceal Luther's explicit language by the conventionally pious and the attempt to highlight it to undermine piety by the anti-religious are wrong-headed. The insight underlying Luther's tower experience is in fact quite profound. That is, that God is everywhere, even in what are apparently the most unholy places. That he stands by us even in the lost and least pleasing parts of creation. Even in the lost, the toilet. You know what, sometimes, I had a burrito yesterday. Sometimes we fear. That's what I'm imagining. It's like you have a burrito. You have a burrito the day before, and you're facing the lost and damned in that moment. Just call you Chew, and don't worry, only like 3 people pronounce it closer, right? You want to be called Chew? That's in Japanese. That's how they give kisses, you guys know. They go Chew, Chew, Chew. Your messages can and will have delay. Your internet is real bad. No worries at all. I will try and keep in mind what I said, so that I can keep in mind. Had to respond. Luther at one point claimed his best ideas came onto him while on the pot. Listen, that's just like most people. That's just like most. Let's be honest, most of our best ideas probably come to us when we're just sitting there with nothing to do. Do you guys ever like grab random toiletries around you, like your soap? Not maybe not your soap. You might use hand soap. I sometimes use bar soap, like your soap or your body wash, hair wash, random things, and just read the labels on it, and just be like, what's this made out of? And it's all a bunch of chemicals that you don't know. All the time. Gotta keep busy. Otherwise you'll get a revelation from God and you'll cause like hundreds of years of warfare. You always say you're a choo-choo train? Cute. Do you not bring your phone to the bath? Sometimes it's dead. Sometimes you forget. Sometimes it's dead. And hello, Haley. You couldn't sleep. You missed Ruadh so much. And thank you for the head pat. I hope at least you got kind of a little bit of rest. And I hope you're feeling okay. At least you'll get a proper sleep later, I'm sure. You have to go. You have a mass to go to, like a good Catholic. Enjoy mass, Tallies. I don't have a good mass, I suppose. Your toilet thoughts are wondering how mermaids would do the deed. I think they just would lay eggs, and you would just have to fertilize it, I guess. I hope you have an awesome stream. Thank you, Tallies. You missed your voice. You're doing a bit better, but still eepy. You might just fall asleep to my voice then. Whatever happens, I hope you continue to feel a little bit better, Haley. And I hope you get back into the Christmas spirit. Wait, hang on. I'll do that wink better. No, the eye tracking. That was okay. It double winked. Your kitty is next to you and he's purring. Aww, cute kitty. Give him some gentle scratching for me. Some gentle head scratches. No. No, I can't purr. I can't do the purr. No, that doesn't sound good. I will pet him for you, thank you. All beings are his creation and thus are worthy of respect. In contrast... Oh, excuse me. In contrast to Neoplatonists, who see matter as a fallen state of intellect, Luther sees incarnation as the highest moment of the divine, and a moment that the devil cannot emulate or overcome. As Marius has argued, at the heart of his religious being, Luther believed in the incarnation, the goodness of creation, the capacity of the physical and spiritual to be joined together, and that Christ was to restore God's work to its original purity. Within both Neoplatonism and scholastic Aristotelianism, the divine is imagined to transcend the physical. The source of sin is thus conceived as a falling away from God into the material world, which is at best an imperfect image of the divine and at worst a snare of the devil. For Luther, by contrast, God is conceived out of the incarnation. The corporeal is thus not a falling away from divine reality, but a place in which the divine comes to be in and for us. It is the parogia. Human entanglement in the corporeal world is therefore not in itself sinful, not a falling away from God. Not only is the material world not connected to the devil, it is the one thing he cannot penetrate. The devil acts not by stroking our carnal desires, but by preying on our spirit, our intellect, and our pride. The devil is the demagogue within, the evil Machiavellian rhetorician who speaks to our self-interest and thereby leads us astray. Indeed, the devil hates all incarnation, all life. Thus, in Luther's view, he hates procreation and marriage, because he hates God's life-giving power that is virtually present in the attraction of man and woman. Thus, the notion that the celibate life is higher and more holy than the married life in Luther's view is mistaken. Indeed, it is itself the product of the devil stoking the priestly pride. The carnal life for Luther is thus a divine gift to be enjoyed. Luther himself loved nature and enjoyed drinking, eating, sexuality, etc. During his disputation with Eck, he carried a rose in his hand that he repeatedly gazed upon and smelled to remind himself of the goodness of creation. That we typically associate the Reformation with Puritan asceticism has little to do with Luther, and much more to do with the revival of Neoplatonism in the thought of Calvin and the Calvinists, which replaced Luther's cosmology of the Incarnation with a more arid intellectual spiritualism. Conclusion. Luther's thought originates out of the deep spiritual problems that arise from his encounter with nominalism. His thinking follows a path that is radically different from that of his scholastic predecessors. In part, this new vision owes a great deal to nominalism, but it is crucially formed by his own great insight into the centrality of incarnation. This radically new ontology produces a new view of God, man, and the natural world. This said, Luther's position is beset by deep and intractable problems. The question of divine justice, for example, cannot be easily disposed of, as Luther would have us believe. Focusing on Christ and the Incarnation and prohibiting speculation about the hidden God will not put such questions to rest. Why should we assume this hidden God is merciful and loving rather than indifferent or cruel? How do we know that he is not a genius or a genius malignus, as Descartes would later put it? In other words, why should we trust God's promises, trust that he will abide by his potentia ordinata, when in fact he is more truly a potentia absoluta? Luther's answer to this perplexing question comes down to his faith in Scripture, but Luther himself finds it difficult to sustain this claim. Scripture, he often admits, has to be interpreted, and this means valuing some passages and books above others. How, in such circumstances, do we know we are choosing correctly? How do we know what we take to be divine inspiration behind our reading is not in fact the subliminal urgings of our passions and desires? Moreover, a great deal in Luther's thought turns on the notion of grace, but Jesus never uses the word charis in this sense in the Bible. It becomes central only in Paul and later in Augustine. Similarly, it is difficult to find any mention of predestination in the synoptic Gospels. Luther's Christianity, therefore, perhaps depends more on Paul than on Jesus. But why would Paul be taken as definitive? He may be clearer than Jesus, but is clarity closer to truth than ambiguity? Or is it only nearer fanaticism? Luther's religious mission began on that July afternoon in 1505, when he found himself in a storm from which he actually never emerged. In all the tumult of struggle and debate that surrounded him the rest of his life, he held fast to his core doctrine that God saw everything and man is nothing. This was the point of certainty on which everything else turned. This position, however, was directly at odds with that of humanism. It was thus in a sense inevitable that the two great movements of thought that had arisen in response to nominalism should collide. The resultant collision produced the greatest debate of the 16th century, the debate between Erasmus and Luther. on the freedom and bondage of the will, remains in the heart of modernity. Their debate was a matter of words, but it was a prelude to a debate of a different kind, in which words were replaced by deeds and pens by swords, and what had been written in ink was henceforth written in blood. So Thales mentioned earlier that the most famous mudslinging occurs between these two, Erasmus and Luther. So I think we can probably read for another little bit. Definitely. Excuse me. I had to speak to someone. Oh, I'm a little bit sniffly. From being out in the cold and walking. Uh-oh. I can feel the sneeze coming. I don't know if it will come or not. But it actually leads us into chapter 5, the contradictions of pre-modernity. I think this is quite a long chapter, 121. Hang on, I'm going to sneeze. Okay, that was a good sneeze. Oh, excuse me. You guys know when, like, sometimes you sneeze and not much happens. But then sometimes you sneeze and it's like everything clears. It's like, I can breathe. That did not happen. But it was still a decent sneeze. On the spring day in May 1631, Count von Tilly celebrated a mass to thank God for his conquest of Magdeburg, the chief city of the Protestant Reformation, boasting that no such victory had occurred since the destruction of Jerusalem. Bless you, thank you, Pip. Very kind of you. He was only slightly exaggerating. The cathedral in which the Mass was held was one of 3 buildings that had not been burned to the ground. His Catholic League troops had besieged the city since November, living in muddy trenches through the winter snows, enduring the daily jeers and abuse of the Protestant inhabitants of the city. Once they stormed through the gates, their zeal, rapacity, and greed knew no bounds. The slaughter was unstoppable. Fires were set throughout the city, children were thrown into flames, and women were raped before being butchered. 53 women were beheaded in the church where they sought refuge. Okay, I already read it, but, I guess, some of this is quite heavy stuff, so, if I knew, I would have given a short warning. My apologies, if it's a little bit hard to listen to. No one was spared. 25,000 Protestants were massacred or incinerated, and of the 5,000 survivors, some few were noblemen held for ransom, but all the rest were women who had been carried off to the imperial camp, to be raped and sold from soldier to soldier. News of this atrocity quickly spread throughout Europe, hardening the sectarian lines of conflict that had begun 13 years before, and that would rage on for another 17. The modern world as we think of it today was born in this time of religious conflict and destruction, beginning in the early 16th century and lasting until the middle of the 17th century. The wars of religion were conducted with a fervour and brutality that were not seen again until our own times. Indeed, the ferocity of the combatants may have even exceeded our own, for almost all the killing took place at close quarters, often in hand-to-hand combat, and thus without the emotionally insulating distance that modern technologies make possible. The slaughter at Magdeburg, for all its horror, was not the first or last such event. You sometimes have problems that you feel like you're going to sneeze but nothing comes out, and other times you have an actual dad sneeze. You think once you popped a vein from your sneeze, oh my god. I know exactly what you mean, though oftentimes what happens is you get that feeling of excuse me. You get that feeling of you're going to sneeze, and then you say it to someone, but then you don't sneeze, and you feel embarrassed. But I do know that as well. Sometimes you get like a little pixie sneeze. You're like, achoo, achoo, and nothing happens. And then other times it's like you You would have been like the big bad wolf, and you would have blown the house down of the little piggies had you been sneezing into their straw. Maybe I should read that sometime. That sounds fun. During the peasants' rebellion in 1520, over 100,000 German peasants and impoverished townspeople were slaughtered. Many of them, when they rushed headlong into battle against the heavily armoured troops, convinced by their leader Thomas Munzer that true believers were immune to musket balls. In 1572, 70,000 French Huguenots were slaughtered in the Saint Bartholomew Day massacre. The Franciscan monks who had preached that killing heretics was the surest way to salvation were pleased, but apparently not as pleased as Pope Gregory the Ninth, or the Eighth, who was so delighted to receive the head of the slain Huguenot leader, Coligny, in a box that he had a special medal struck commemorating the event. You hate that so much, when nothing comes. It's very annoying. Your body goes to all that trouble and nothing happens. And finally, lest anyone imagine that the barbarity was one-sided, Cromwell's model army sacked the Irish town of Drogheda in 1649, killing virtually everyone. They burned alive those who had taken refuge in St. Mary's Cathedral, butchered the women hiding in the vaults beneath it, used Irish children as human shields, hunted down and killed every priest, and sold the 30 surviving defenders into slavery. Cromwell, without any least sense of irony, thanked God for giving him the opportunity to destroy such barbarous heretics. While these accounts are shocking, they only give us an inkling of the horrors of these wars that raged over Europe for more than 5 generations. By the way, anyone else sometimes eats something, but then some of the food gets on the roof of the nose, or just you? I've never gotten that before. I've never gotten that. That's a unique one. Like the nose and the mouth are connected by the nasal passages. They do lead down all into the throat, so it can definitely happen. I did have one time. I do remember this. It hurts like hell, so lucky you. Yeah, that doesn't sound very fun. Actually, you know what? That's a disgusting thing to talk about. I'm not going to talk about it. It's kind of icky. It's kind of icky. While these accounts are shocking, I read this. By conservative estimates, the wars claimed the lives of 10% of the population of England, 15% in France, 30% in Germany, and more than 50% in Bohemia. By comparison, European dead in World War II exceeded 10% of the population only in Germany and the USSR. Within our experience, only the Holocaust and the killing fields of Cambodia can begin to rival the levels of destruction that characterize the wars of religion. While we call them wars of religion, it would be mistaken to assume that religion alone was responsible for the carnage. Political, dynastic, and nationalistic factors clearly played a role in fomenting, perpetuating, and exacerbating the conflict. Machiavellian political techniques also undoubtedly made the killing more effective, but the fanaticism of the participants and the brutality they displayed were in large measure a manifestation of religious passions. These passions grew out of a fundamental disagreement about the nature of God and the relationship of God and man. In Chapter 4 we discussed the basis of this disagreement in our examination of Luther's theology and his critique of Catholic doctrines and practices. For Catholicism, the Church was the embodiment of the Holy Spirit, imparted by Christ to Peter, and handed down to Peter to his successors. The hierarchically organized clergy that stood between God and man, a conduit for commands from above and requests from below. Like any such mediating institution, it was prone to corruption. For Luther, however, the problem was not the result of the moral failure of individual human beings. The Church as a whole was corrupt. It was simply a false church, merely a tool used by Satan to enslave and exploit humanity. The true Church consisted of the elect, that is, all of those who were filled by grace, with faith by the grace of God. It was these faithful few, and not the clergy, who Luther believed embodied the Holy Spirit, and who were thus the vehicle through which God manifested himself and worked his will in the world. The antagonism that erupted in the wars of religion grew out of these differences. Sounds like it hurts how you had to go through that. It happened twice to you, and yeah, it is like, it sounds it. The church that Luther brought opposed blended traditional beliefs and practices with innovations brought about as a result of the Nominalist Revolution. The long-withstanding dominance of the Curia, the Church's continuing entanglement in temporal affairs, the worship of the saints, the doctrine of the purgatory and its other similar traditional elements had been combined with a via moderna theology that gave precedence to works over faith, continence to the sale of indulgences, and promoted other such innovations to create a church that Luther thought could only be the tool of the devil. Luther's protest itself, however, was rooted in the same nominalist revolution that had produced many of the ideas and practices he so vehemently opposed. How can we explain this apparent contradiction? It is important here to distinguish two strains of the nominalist movement. What Luther rejected was the soft, semi-Pelagian nominalism of Holcott and Beale, but in doing so he turned towards the harder, less compromising nominalism of Bradwardine d'Autecourt and Gregory of Rimini, that emphasized the arbitrariness and unpredictability of God's absolute power. Why is your home country, Germany, mentioned so often in many things? It's a pretty important little country. Although at this time period, I'm pretty sure it was pretty much becoming a state, a fully fledged state, not just the Holy Roman Empire, with like 60,000 different little statelets. For Luther, then, salvation thus could not be gained by works, but only by faith, and faith itself only through grace. Grace, however, was unimparted by ceremonies or sacraments, but as we saw in the last chapter, by the word of God. For Luther, then, the path to salvation lay not through the mediating institutions of the Church, but an immediate counter with Scripture. Reform for Luther meant not merely eliminating corruption or improving morals, but a reordering of one's being by God himself. It was this notion of conversion and all that it implied that catapulted Luther and his followers into a struggle with the Church that convulsed Europe for almost 150 years. While the necessity for reform had been widely apparent since the time of Petrarch, it is reasonably clear that most people did not think that such a radical change was necessary. Moreover, there were other means to reform the Church. Christian humanism, which we examined in Chapter 3, offered a version of Christianity that resembled that of Luther. Its Christianity was also less ritualistic and more spiritual, and equally critical of corruption and hypocrisy, but also more circumspect in its opposition, not attacking fundamental... No, you're not getting my nose this time. Get away from me. Get away from me. Thank you so much, Nerdwolf, for the follow. Welcome in, Nerdwolf. Your internet is making a very big delay, like 3 to 5 minutes. Oh, that sucks. Don't worry, Chew. If you don't return, your Twitch ain't working. Thank you so much for the follow as well, Chew. Very sweet of you, I hope your internet manages to get better. And thank you for the head pat. Thank you for the head pat. Very happy now, after being viciously assaulted by Fox. Not attacking fundamental beliefs and practices directly, employing instead irony and satire, relying ultimately not on a static and rapturous rebirth in the spirit, but on a system of moral training and education. Christian humanism offered a less disruptive and less violent path to reformation that, by all estimates, had a good chance of success. Why then was this path so unacceptable to Luther? What was wrong with humanism? One might imagine that Luther wasn't happy with humanism because it was so secular, because it pulled Christians away from their faith. Surprisingly, this was not the case. While some humanists may have followed a more secular path, this did not particularly concern Luther. Indeed, in his own opinion, secular humanists were clearly preferable to many other secular possibilities. What he found intolerable was not secular humanism, but Christian humanism. Indeed, the more Christian humanism was, the more dangerous it seemed to him. The more likely to mislead Christians and distort religious life. The real and essential differences between Luther's thought and the thought of humanism thus became apparent, not only when accidental factors are eliminated, that is, only when they are most nearly approached one another. Bullying Foxy for pokies. Fox is bullying me. She's the one who's poking me in the face. That's her. She's being mean. But I have to allow it. I have to allow it because she saves me in Helldivers. She saves me in Helldivers a lot. As we saw in the last two chapters, both humanists and Reformation thought developed as responses to nominalism. The difference between them was largely the result of their differing perceptions about what nominalism was and what needed to be done to overcome it. On basic issues they were in agreement. Both accepted the nominalist critique of scholastic realism and the ontological individualism that was central to nominalism. Both also rejected the nominalist treatment of words as mere signs in favor of a rhetorical or human hermeneutic understanding of language. Wait, where was that line? Oh. On matters of metaphysica generali, they were thus on remarkably similar ground. The real difference for them emerged in the realm of metaphysica specially, and particularly in their conflicting views of the ontic priority of man and God, and the relationship between them. These differences led to profound disagreements about how Christians ought to live, as individuals in communities, and with respect to their God. And it was these disagreements that brought them into conflict. Their differences on these matters are a reflection of a deep tension within Christianity itself. What distinguished Christianity from the very beginning was not its monotheism, which it actually shared with Judaism and later with Islam, but its notion of divine incarnation that bridged the gap between God and man. This notion was a source of great strength in the Roman world, in which the distance between gods and man had grown quite large, but it also posed a real problem for Christians because it was so difficult to explain what that meant. How should one understand the claim that God had become a man, and that man could in turn become a god, or at least come to dwell in God? This question was in fact two different but related questions. What is the relationship between the divine and the human, or the Father and the Son, within the Godhead? And what is the relationship of other human beings to this God-man? How could there be multiple beings and multiple wills that were coordinated with one another? The earlier Christian debates between the Arians, Manichaeans, Pelagians, and Trinitarians were at heart disagreements on how to make sense of this fundamental human notion, or Christian notion. Building on a Neoplatonic foundation, the Church Fathers developed a Trinitarian answer to these questions that became church doctrine at the Council of Nicaea and succeeding councils. This doctrine was more fully elaborated by Augustine and his followers. They understood God in many ways, following Plotinus, as absolute intellect, absolute love, and absolute power. They argue that man was created in the image of God when it was endowed with freedom, and had fallen by his misuse of this freedom, and was redeemed by God's incarnation and self-sacrifice. This answer was revived and elaborated within an Aristotelian or Averroist framework by the scholastics. Scholasticism held that the words of Father and Son could meaningfully be used in relation to the Godhead, but that the usage had to be understood in terms of an analogy to human life. To say that Jesus Christ is the Son of the Father is to affirm a truth, but in a special way. It is not simply a poetic metaphor or an emotive expression, but neither is it to claim that Jesus Christ is the biological Son of God. The medieval scholastics and their predecessors explored the rationality of analogical reasoning with subtlety and insight. Augustine, for example, works through a series of progressively more adequate analogies in On the Trinity. Aquinas argued that we can gain some insight into God by reflecting on things and their qualities or attributes. Since everything is created by God, The ways in which things are must reflect something of his nature. The entire project was based. I wanted to leave it at that. The entire project was based, however, on the conviction that people could to a degree comprehend rationally how words such as Father and Son could appear in true statements about God, as well as about other human beings, because the meanings of words were rooted in their real existence of universals. The prominence and pervasiveness of reason in this account made possible the reconciliation of God and man within the Trinity, and the coordination of divine and human will within the world. The will, voluntas, of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, embodied in the Church, were all thought to be directed by divine reason, oratio. That was the supreme moment of divine being. The human will was coordinated with the divine will when it was dominated by reason and sinned when it was not. Hence, the principal goal of a Christian was to overcome the irrational self-will that led to sin and adopt the universal reason of God embodied in his creation, his word, and his church as the basis for the direction of one's life. For all of its obvious advantages, the scholastic view of supremacy of reason seemed to many to call into question God's divinity, since it subordinated divine power to reason. As we saw in chapter 1, this Aristotelian scholasticism was condemned in 1277 and attacked by Scotus, Occam, and the Nominalists in the years thereafter. They all rejected the supremacy of reason and God and man in favor of will. God could only be God if he were truly omnipotent. The essence of omnipotence in their view, however, was an absolute freedom that was indifferent to its object. God wills what he wills and wills it only because he wills it. While this position saved and affirmed God's divinity, it also opened up another problem. For if not reason was preeminent in God or in the world, it was not clear how the divine wills and human will, both in the Trinity and in the world, could be coordinated with one another. In this way, the Nominalist revolution brought Christians face to face with the central question that had plagued Christianity from the beginning, and revealed and empowered the Arian, Manichaean, and Pelagian alternatives that the Christians of late antiquity, often with the help of imperial power, had suppressed. Christian humanists and Reformation theologians had to face these questions. In struggling with them, they developed radically different answers on roughly the same ontological and logical grounds. The disagreements on this point was not the result of a disagreement about being itself or the relationship of words and things, but about the priority of one realm of beings to another. As we noted in chapter 3, the disagreements were thus not ontological, but ontic. In order to begin to understand why this was the case and how these differences came to play such a decisive role, we will examine the debate between Luther and Erasmus on the freedom or bondage of the will. Erasmus was the greatest of the humanists after Petrarch, and the culmination of the humanist movement. Luther set the Reformation in motion, and his theology remained its driving force for a century and a half. They were also both clearly aware of their preeminence. Moreover, these two were so similar in many ways that their disagreement turned on real differences, not on trivial or insubstantial points. Differences so profound that no reconciliation was possible. Differences that made the larger conflict inevitable, and remain salient in many respects from modernity. Coleridge once remarked that, quote, utter unlikes cannot but end in dislikes, and so it proved between Erasmus and Luther. While he correctly saw that the debate between the two was a necessary consequence of the differences or unlikeness of their competing positions, he erred in assuming they were utterly unlike. In fact, their similarities far outnumbered their differences. Both criticized scholasticism and agreed that the corruption of the church was intolerable. Both also opposed realism and shared in an ontological commitment to individualism. Both were sincerely interested in reform, and both believed that this required a return to Scripture and a new hermeneutic based hermeneutic based on an encounter with Scripture in its original languages and historical contexts. And finally, both gave prominence to the will over reason in both God and man. In light of all these similarities, while it is so surprising, is that they ever became entangled in a debate, let alone one so vitriolic. Coleridge should have said, quote, or his own quote, I suppose, "Such likes cannot but end in dislike, if they are unlike in one crucial respect." Rather than mitigating their differences, their many similarities actually highlighted and intensified the central disagreement so dramatically that no compromise or reconciliation was possible. Erasmus versus Luther. I'll probably go for another, maybe half an hour, we'll say. As we saw in the last chapter, Luther's revolutionary theology developed over a long time. Still, there were crucial turning points in his thought and in his relationship to the Church. The debate with Erasmus was one of these. While it was clear after the publication of the Babylonian captivity of the Church in 1520, there could be no reconciliation with the Pope, there was still a question whether Reformation would follow a more humanistic or a more evangelical path. The debate between Luther and Erasmus settled this point, and it opened up a chasm between the humanists and the reformers. Many at the time were surprised that Luther and Erasmus came into conflict, since they believed Luther was a follower of Erasmus. They were both opposed to clerical tyranny and corruption, and both promoted a more simpler, more personal form of Christianity. Luther had also clearly been influenced by humanist thought. He had entered the monastery, quote, hugging his Plautus and Virgil, wholeheartedly on the side of Rauchlin and his nephew Melanchthon. He also clearly accepted the humanist dictum that Scripture had to be read in its original languages, and had worked hard to master Greek and Hebrew. Moreover, he had been deeply influenced by Valla, Pico, and other Italian humanists. In view of this, it is not surprising that Luther was regarded by many of the younger humanists as one of their own. All of this notwithstanding, and whatever his earlier views, after 1515 Luther categorically denied the central humanist thesis that man is an independent being committing himself to a theology that saw God and his grace as a source of everything. And thank you so much, who ate my bolus? Thank you so much for the follow. And hello, Riley. Thank you. Welcome in. Sweet Caroline. Bum. Sometimes never feels so good. Welcome in. I'll leave you sing along in chat, I suppose. Or sing in chat. This new position, however, only gradually became clear to the larger world. Thus, while someone like Melanchthon, who was intimately acquainted with both Luther and Erasmus, could understand their differences, the artist Albrecht Dürer, for example, could still hope in 1521 that Erasmus would assume leadership of the Wittenberg Reformation after Luther was incarcerated. Their affinities, and more importantly their common enemies, thus masked the crucial differences between Luther's Vera Theologia and Erasmus's Philosophia Christi. It is a pretty good song, I must say. Erasmus first heard of Luther in December 1516, when Frederick the Wise's chaplain, George Spalatin, informed him that an unnamed Augustinian monk had taken issue with his interpretation of law in Romans. His first real knowledge of Luther came in 1518, when he read Luther's Theses on Indulgences, with which he wholeheartedly agreed. Because of Luther's friendship with Melanchthon, Erasmus assumed he was a kind of kindred spirit. He thus saw the first attacks on Luther as attacks on his own humanistic project. Luther wrote a friendly letter to Erasmus on March 28, 1519, and Erasmus responded 2 months later, encouraging Luther but urging restraint. While he and Luther were never on friendly terms, Erasmus did support the younger theologian. in April 1519. Did support the younger theologian. In April 1519, he interceded on Luther's behalf with Frederick the Wise, asserting that the attacks on Luther were a consequence of the breakdown of the Church by the scholastic theologians and the Benedictine orders. In November 1520, he defended Luther again, telling Frederick the Wise that Luther, quote, had committed a great sin. He has hit the monks in the belly and the Pope in his crown. Despite his continuing support for Luther, their differences were becoming clearer to Erasmus. He knew that he was a target of Luther's charge in the letter of May 28, 1522 that, quote, truth is mightier than eloquence, the spirit stronger than genius, faith greater than learning. Oh no, what happened to the Facebook redeem? You got me looking towards chat. So you could just poke me straight in the face. Is that it? First hour? Is that what you were doing? Sneaky. You made me look towards chat to read and you got me right in the face. You were blind. I see. I don't believe you. I think you played a trick on me. You only know Michael Collins. Martin Luther is quite an important person to know. You need to know him for history. They often ask about Martin Luther and the Reformation in history leaving cert. Was that junior cert? I think it's both. I think they could ask about it on both. Christ fears neither the gates of hell nor the power of the air. However, Erasmus was still convinced as late as 1523 that the monks were his real enemy. Quote, if Luther is brought low, neither God nor man will be able to stand against the monks. He saw much that he agreed with in Luther's protest, even though he disliked his vehemence. Erasmus tried unsuccessfully to mediate between Luther and the Pope, and he grew increasingly frustrated with Luther's unwillingness to moderate demands that Erasmus saw endangering the humanist program of reform. Part of Erasmus's frustration arose from the fact that he thought that accommodation was a religious principle, and he did not understand Luther's position that earthly peace must not be purchased at the price of angering God's anger. With the intensification of the dispute, Erasmus found it increasingly difficult to remain impartial. His enemies openly characterized him as a father of Lutheranism. When Luther's books were burned at Louvain in October 8, 1520, he was criticized from the pulpit. It was said that he had laid the egg that Luther had hatched. Latimus and others even suspected that Erasmus was actually a Lutheran. Others were convinced that he was more dangerous to the church than Luther. Erasmus's attempts to mediate the conflict also angered many Lutherans. Ulrich von Hutten, for example, was furious that Erasmus would not take his place at Luther's side. Who's Michael Collins? Michael Collins was one of the leaders of the Irish Rebellion against the English in the 20s and 30s. He kind of came to the forefront after the 1916 rebellion. The pressure thus grew on Erasmus to declare his true allegiance. Luther and Melanchthon hoped that he would support them, or at least not oppose them in fact. Luther promised not to attack Erasmus if Erasmus did not attack him first. When this became known, however, Erasmus was put at a further disadvantage, since it seemed that he had a secret agreement with Luther. Erasmus's position became even more difficult after appeals from the Pope and Henry VIII to write against Luther. Eventually, he saw no other choice than to come out against Luther. Do you not actually know Michael Collins? Are you serious? Well, I mean, not everyone is from Ireland or even from the general region, so it's likely that, you know, individuals in Irish history are not thought in wherever Pip may be. You should be... That's just shocking. I mean, you have to understand that Americans have their own history to learn about, and they probably just take a very general, brief overview of European history, especially, you know, mainly World War One, World War Two, probably some stuff with a very brief overview of the Don't do that, Riley. Don't start. I would rather not have random stuff. Even though I may be an Irish, I may effectively support Irish unification, absolutely, but I'd rather not have that type of stuff in my chat for the most part. And be nicer when people don't know things about history. Be nice when people don't know much about history. Oftentimes, if you deride people, I've seen it happen before actually. I remember someone I knew. It wasn't someone I knew. It was someone I was meeting, and we were talking about history, and I didn't know something about some topic. I can't even remember what it was. And he was shocked that I didn't know, and he was very kind of rude, like incredulous about it, I guess was probably the best word. And it kind of put me off listening to him. Like I didn't even want to really learn about it from him because he was kind of rude about the whole thing. So it's important to be nice to people who may not know. When people give you the opportunity to teach them, it can be good. You're bad. Sorry, no worries. It's I try to make sure that I keep a handle on chat, and I make clear my positions. But you're welcome to be in. Don't worry, Pip. Head pat, Pip. Head pats for Pip. I'll probably be ending soon enough anyway. You are crying, feel bad. No, Pip. Punch. Wait, why did I punch you? Don't lie about crying. Head pat still. There we go. Now we've all made up. Abusive. I'll show you abusive. Whack with the book. That's a big book too. Hello Rick Sager, welcome in. He heard about me being abusive with my book and he was like, I have to join this guy. I have to join him. Where were we? Oh yes, here. No. Oh yes. Those urging him to enter the fray expected him to defend papal supremacy. Erasmus, however, decided to focus instead on the question of the freedom of the will, which he believed was a more essential to the question of reform, and also a less divisive topic. Moreover, he determined to write with such moderation that Luther could not take offence. Buy you bread. I like to imagine you buy a single slice of bread, unbuttered. Now, to be fair, if I was apologizing to someone, you know, if I like really wronged someone, I wronged a friend in a not really wrong, but in a small type of way, I'd definitely be like, can I get? I'd like, you know, I wanted to apologize. I may consider buying them like a really nice type of bread Get them Brennan's bread. Get them Brennan's bread. Today's bread today, as their motto is. That one always made me giggle. Today's bread today. It's so silly. It's a good one. It's a funny one. I like the switch up on it. He determined to write. Oh yeah. In fact, his work was not an attack at all, but a discussion intended to draw Luther into a debate about the central issues of his new theology, where he could not simply hurl his assertions against orthodoxy. Erasmus thought it might thus be possible to avoid the schism. Erasmus titled his work On the Freedom of the Will. It treated a question that had bedeviled Christianity since its beginning, at least the time of Augustine. The question of spiritual freedom was also central to Christian humanism. As we have seen, humanism rested on the assumption that man is capable of directing his actions and taking responsibility for them. That man, in other words, is not just a creature determined in everything he does by God or fate, but a freely choosing moral being whose actions make a difference in his earthly life and for his salvation. brown bread with the pips is in them is disgusting. I'm not against. I'm not against brown bread. I like if I had to choose between brown bread and white bread, even though I know white bread is like in terms of nutrition and like health wise is worse for you, I would probably go for white bread. Although sometimes brown bread can be really nice with soup. It can be really nice, really nice. What kind of bread is your favorite? That's hard to say. It's hard to say. I'm not as learned as maybe a German would be on their bread. Maybe I have to go talk to Kaz Spella, one of my VTuber friends who is German, and ask him about their types of breads. What's your favorite type of bread, D? If you were to show me all the kinds of breads, what would you do? And I hope your grass touching is going well. Bracken bread. I know that type of bread. I've had it once. Like once it was tasty. What am I trying to say? One time that I had it, it was actually quite nice. Most of the other times was like, maybe not. What I love doing, and I haven't done it in so long, is just getting a roll and cutting it up into rings and then buttering the roll. I haven't done that in so long. You like Turkish bread? Soft and chewy? I don't think I've ever had Turkish bread. I'm gonna walk into a nearby not nearby to be honest, but like just my nearest bakery is the word I was looking for, and I'm going to order Turkish bread. I want to see what this Turkish bread is like. You have to toast it. I see. I will toast it. When Melanchthon read on the freedom of the will, he recognized Erasmus's moderation and promised him Luther would be as moderate as well. Luther, however, was furious from the moment he discovered that Erasmus had written against him, describing this act as a great refusal. When he received on the freedom of the will, Luther was reluctant to read it, and when he did, he repeatedly wanted to throw it under the bench. While his response was long in coming, it was hard-hitting and unequivocal. You know what all Irish people have in their homes every Christmas? Quality streets. Quality streets. Yeah, and to be honest, all of the tin of sweets have gotten smaller over time. And some of them are just not as good quality. Ironic enough. Quality streets is probably my least favorite of the lot. Although you always have the ones that you don't like in there. I know rose tins have gotten so small. I have an old metal rose tin, and it's like half the size, and probably double the price. Snickers are really good. I love Snickers. Although my favorite type of chocolate bars would be things like Father, you crave nuggies? You will get no nuggies, Triscuits, until you finish your homework. What was I gonna say? Roses used to have these like coffee chocolates that were actually pretty nice. I liked them. But then they replaced them with like just pure milk chocolate, which was kind of disappointing. You know what I'm looking forward to? I'm looking forward to my Lindt chocolate reindeer. I'm gonna bite off his ears. I'm gonna bite off my reindeer's ears. I cannot wait for the Lindt chocolate. I'm getting a skeb of me as a reindeer. I think I'm gonna be wearing like a reindeer onesie. I think it will be very cute. Whatever the artist decides. They did art of someone in a onesie, and I said I thought it's really cute, and I was looking for something very similar. Please draw me, and he accepted. So hopefully that artist gets it done sometime soon. Playboy reindeer? No, it's not a. It's not. No, D. No, it is not a Playboy reindeer. It's like a onesie. It's pajamas. Don't be so weird. No, I'm not gonna be in a Playboy magazine. Cease that. If you don't know what to get someone for Christmas, you rather get them socks or PJs or Quality Street. Like unironically, socks and jocks are like at this stage a great present to get because you can never have enough of them. Let's be honest here. Well, you probably like I mean, if you're drowning in socks, it's probably enough. But like in general, it's always good to have good pairs. I remember this pair like when I got a suit, which is a very very nice suit. I must say, it is a very very nice suit. I got the suit and 2 shirts and a pair of shoes, and the guy threw in some threw in a free tie. No, I got a tie as well as the what you call it, the pocket square. He threw in a free tie alongside it, and then he threw in some like 2 pairs of socks and 2 pairs of jocks with it, which I'm sure those things are worth nothing compared to the suit, so it's easy for them to do so. But they were really good quality socks and jocks, I must say. Very nice feeling. Sometimes you just know they're nice. Socks are great. They really are. Wool trench socks. Ooh. I cannot wait to get into pajamas Christmas morning and just laze about. I mean, I'm already kind of lazing about mostly, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. D, I hope you're ready for Christmas. Oh wait, no, you guys have like summer hot months when during that time. I noted, I saw Riley, no need to repeat things, but I disagree. Bounty Bears, I do not like coconut. Are y'all excited? Are y'all? that felt so weird to say. We don't say y'all. We say ye in Ireland. Well, I think 1 or 2 places might say no, I don't think use is really that's more of an English thing. But mainly ye. You're ready for summer Christmas? A fellow coconut hater. It's not nice. It's not nice with chocolate. It's not nice with chocolate. Even with a cup of tea. No, it's not nice. It's not nice. I do want to try a proper coconut though. I want to try. I've had coconut water. Or thingy. That's nice enough. It's okay. It's okay. I want to try. I want to see what the inside of a coconut is like. Run, you're American. But it's just what you say. No, you know what? I do like the word y'all. I think it's a funny word. I like hearing it in like a southern twang. Hey y'all, how you doing? How you doing? That's more. That's like Italian, American. How you doing? How you doing, Pip? But y'all, I like that. I like that as a word. It's a fun word. Offended. Hey, oh, no need to be offended over here. We're just having a bit of fun. We're just busting your balls. Don't no need to be offended. Are you asking me? I do not reveal what county I'm from. That is a little too close to be revealing. And even if you have an idea, I would much rather anyone who does such to not say. Even if they're completely wrong, I just rather that type of thing be. Americans don't say that. Italian Americans, the mafia says that. You sound from New York, and New York's not American. Hey, oh, hey, I'm walking here. Is my New York? Do I sound like a native New Yorkian? New Yorker, actually, I think is what they call themselves. I want to call a New Yorkian, and see them get angry. I bet they'd get angry. You mean you're not an American who does a really good Irish accent? No, I am Irish. I am 100% Irish. Oh, that was D. American county. Yes, I am from I'm from Dublin, Massachusetts. I'm pretty sure there's a county called Dublin in there somewhere. Try a Galway county in some random American state. Are you the only American person here? Possibly. I mean, these Aussie land. Little does he know, he is an American that doesn't really get an Irish accent. Oh no, I'm sorry to anyone who is sleeping. I'm sorry. Actually American all this time. If I would just open my eyes a little bit more, I realize I would realize I'm actually in like New Hampshire or something. Nebraska. Irish cutie pie. Aw, thank you, Triscuits. That reminds me, I have a banana offie pie yogurt, protein yogurt in my fridge. I'm gonna go have that after stream. That will be tasty. I'm just gonna read to the end of this little section, and I think that'll probably be where I finish up for the day. Oh, maybe I could read for a little bit more. It's only like 5 pages until the next kind of... Yeah, I might read there to there. I still have a little bit to go. This is a long chapter, so it would be good to get a good bit done. Yeah, getting 20 pages done would be good. Where were we? Luther titled his response "On the Bondage of the Will." While Luther had sought to avoid the debate, he proved himself so adept in conducting it that Erasmus was convinced his response had been ghost-ridden by Melanchthon and Justus Jonas. His suspicions were misguided but understandable. Luther demonstrated a rhetorical skill in the work that was as unexpected as it was striking. Despite its rhetorical and theological brilliance, however, the work is often exasperating, because it does not answer many of the questions Erasmus poses, and often degenerates into a personal attack on Erasmus. Erasmus was shocked. He had tried to help Luther and was astounded by his response, which he believed to be the result of a deep-seated fatalism and antinomianism. If Luther could turn against someone so near to him, how could he get along with anyone? And what effect would such a teaching have on the behaviour of the masses? For Erasmus, the peasants' rebellion in 1524-26 was a terrifying answer. He was also convinced from Luther's reply that there was nothing more he could do to save him from the abyss of fanaticism. Under such circumstances, further discussion was futile. Erasmus's response to bondage of the will was with the shield-bearer, or Hyperapistis, a work published in 2 long volumes. This is a work of pure self-defense. Luther had blackened his reputation and he had to respond. He did so at length, considering Luther's charges one by one. The work was thus not really intended for Luther, and there is no direct evidence that Luther ever read it. Whatever the merits of the argument in a practical sense, Luther won the debate. After the publication of Bondage of the Will, no reconciliation of evangelicalism and humanism was possible. Luther thereby forced these interested in reform to choose between him and Erasmus, and effectively forced Erasmus into the arms of the Church. Faced with a choice, those clamouring for reform could hardly fail to side with Luther. However, while Luther won in the short term, he was less successful thereafter. The polarization of this debate strengthened the radical wing of Luther's own evangelical movement, giving greater weight to the Anabaptists and the Antinomians who found Luther too conservative. Moreover, since Luther had argued that inspiration trumped morality, he was unable to urge moral restraint on those radicals. He thus had to call on the armed forces of the princes to maintain order. This, however, was a fatal decision. His resistance to individual revelation rendered him increasingly superfluous to the rapidly radicalizing Reformation movement, and his turn to the princes helped legitimize the use of the state violence on behalf of religious truth, which was to prove so disastrous over the next century. Thus, while Luther's victory made it inevitable that a Reformation would proceed along a more evangelical path, it thus also increased the probability that it would move in a more radical and violent direction than he had desired. While Erasmus lost the debate in the context of his times and was unable to prevent this violent struggle he had so feared, in the long run his theological position proved more successful. His debate with Luther angered both Lutherans and Catholics. Each side thought that he was dissembling for different reasons. In part, their suspicions were simply due that he excuse me. Oh God, I got completely tongue-tied there. What did the claustrophobic astronaut need? Some space. How did the miner fall down the well? Because he couldn't see that well? I like those. Those are good jokes. Let me try that. In part, their suspicions were simply due to his practiced use of irony, which made it difficult to know what he really believed. Luther thus remarked that, quote, Erasmus is slippery as an eel, and concluded, only Christ can grab him. Erasmus also angered Orthodox Catholics. He had not attacked Luther in the way they had expected. He gradually lost favour in the church, and during the pontificate of Paul IV in 1555-59, his works were put on the index of forbidden books. Erasmus's project, however, was also carried forward by both Catholics and Protestants. In the longer term, it was thus not Luther's theocentric and apocalyptic vision that had won out, but Erasmus's more moderate and moral Christian humanism. In England, Arminianism, which was deeply indebted to Erasmus, became dominant, and within mainline Protestant churches, Luther's apocalyptic vision was gradually replaced by Erasmus's more worldly concerns. On the Catholic side as well, it was not Erasmus's opponents who had won out, but the Jesuits whose educational project was modelled on that of Erasmus. Erasmus's victory, however, was a long time in coming, and was made only possible by the widespread recognition of the dangers of religious fanaticism as a result of the wars of religion. The idea of the freedom of the will in Western thought. The question of the freedom of the will was largely unknown in Greek antiquity because there was no Greek concept of the will. The Greeks thought, more characteristically, in terms of reason ruling or being overpowered by passion. However, the absence of a concept of will did not mean that they did not understand the difference between voluntary and involuntary actions, as Aristotle's famous discussion in Nicomachean Ethics makes clear. Hellenistic thought was also deeply concerned with the issue of freedom, even if the will was something largely unknown to them. For Epicureans, the end of human life was happiness, which they understood to be autokaria or apatheia, self-sufficiency and freedom from disturbance. Hello, Goonwills77 for the follow. Thank you so much. And I think, did that bring me up to 400 followers? I'm not too sure if it did, because I think it was on 399. I'm not 100% sure. It may need to update. I don't know. It did. You are my 400th follower. So thank you so much for the follow, Goonwills77. Very much appreciated. That 400 came way quicker than 300. Oh no. It's rising rapidly. What's the biggest city in the world? Dublin, because every day it keeps on Dublin. I don't get that one. You're mentally unstable, aren't we all? Happy 400, it's my 400th birthday, D. The way you say that. But thank you, D. Thank you. I'm very happy with that. 400 followers is really cool. It's really cool. Yay. I'll have to do maybe something to celebrate. Maybe that can be alongside the Christmas karaoke. What if I did like Christmas ASMR where I was Santa Claus? Ho ho ho. Ho ho ho. Miss D, what would you like for Christmas this year? A new PC? What do you think, I'm made of money? Get out of here. Get out of my toy shop. You'll get nothing. You'll get coal. You won't even get coal. You'll get a piece of dust. and you'll like it. Christmas karaoke. Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be fun. We'll do all the stuff. And I have a few good like Irish Christmas karaoke's, like Christmas in Killarney. You'll take coal in this economy? Okay. Okay, D, fine, you can have the coal. You know, actually, wait. What's the price of coal these days? What? Oh no. I shouldn't have promised her coal. It's gonna bankrupt me. Santa's toy shop has been struggling in the inflation. You know, all this toy gifting. It's not really advantageous for making money. Where were we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's grand. Like 5 pages. Just to identify just do identity theft Santa. Sell the data. Perhaps you were right. Perhaps you were right, D. Perhaps I should sell the data. I know everyone's address. I know everyone's names. I know who's on the good, naughty or good list. But should I truly sell the naughty or good list? Maybe I can sell parts of it. Some people want to know if they're on the list or not. I can definitely sell to them. Yes. I only have 10% left in my tracking device on yo. Well, I better get reading. Hellenistic thought was so deeply concerned with the issue of freedom, even if the will was something largely unknown to them. For the Epicureans, the end of life was happiness, which they understood to be autarkia and apatheia, self-sufficiency and freedom from disturbance. They believed that the chief impediment to such freedom was a fear of death. Since the sources of death in their view were other men and the gods, freedom and happiness could only be obtained by withdrawing from the civic life into private association with friends, and by coming to understand the gods were unconcerned with the lives of men. The Stoics understood happiness in a surprisingly similar matter, but rather than trying to isolate themselves from the world or deny divine intervention in human life, they sought to become one with the divine logos that governs all things. To do so was to become a supremely wise man or sage. The sage, in their view, unites himself with the divine logos by means of indubitable or veridical knowledge, which he obtains as a result of cataleptic, clear and evident sense impressions. In this way he can know rather than merely opine, and become free by becoming one with faith. All other humans are governed by this incomprehensible faith, and thus remain slaves. The wise man, on this account, is not free from the natural causes that move all things, but has an inner spiritual freedom in his union with the whole. The academics, or as they were later called, the skeptics, argued the apodictic knowledge that the Stoics sought was an illusion because for every cataleptic impression one found, another equally certain and opposite impression could also be found. They thus sought to draw the Stoics into debate to force them to defend their assertions. They believed that the Stoics in this way would inevitably become entangled in contradictions. The skeptics also denied that the Stoics had rightly understood necessity, because they made an error in imagining that whatever did happen had happened by necessity, when in fact much that had happened because it was freely chosen. In place of that certainty, the Stoics thought could alone constitute knowledge. In place of the certainty that the Stoics thought could alone constitute knowledge, the academic skeptics sought the plausible or probable, the to pithenon, which they believed could be obtained by a rigorous consideration of matters from a variety of viewpoints. Freedom, as the skeptics understood it, was thus not an imaginary union with the divine logos, nor was it a retreat from existence, rather it was freedom from illusion, since they were determined to suspend judgment and not to affirm as true propositions that were uncertain. While all humans are bound to the world and its illusions, and must often act on the basis of probable judgments, they do not have to do so unwillingly if they follow the skeptical path. The preeminent Christian response to this debate was Augustine's early dialogue against the academics. Augustine was opposed to academic skepticism, but saw it as a step in the right direction. Since the academics, in contrast to the Stoics and Epicureans, did not accept the reality of the material world. However, they were unable to find happiness because they believed that happiness was the very knowledge that their own practice showed was impossible. As Augustine saw saw it, the skeptics needed to take the next logical step and recognize that the mind itself in its activity was the truth. He saw this as a step back towards the Platonic idealism they had abandoned. Only by moving in this direction could they enter on the road to happiness. This road, in Augustine's view, led first to the Platonian ascent to unity with the divine mind, and then to Christ, who liberated human beings not merely in and with the divine Logos, but as individuals. The way to Christ, however, did not follow the path of reason but of faith, and faith came only through divine illumination. Let me have a sip of water. While the question of freedom thus was an essential concern of ancient thought, it was not explicitly connected to a concept of the will, although this concept too had its origin in this debate as part of the Epicurean effort to resolve the problem of the swerve that beset their cosmology. Lucretius used the term voluntas to name the innate power that each atom had to move itself apart from all other motions and collisions. He later used the same term to describe human motion. Will was thus from the beginning was understood as the power of self-movement. For Lucretius, however, will was not separate from mind. Cicero shared this view, although he gave it a Stoic intonation. Drawing on Chrysippus, he wrote in the Tusculan Disputations that, quote, "Will is that which desires something with a reason." Hello. Oh, that's an awkward name. Chloe the Ray of Sunshine. Oh, okay, it's Chloe the Ray of Sunshine. That's a cute name. Hello. Welcome in. It seemed much more complicated when I was trying to read it the first time. I was like, Chloe Are Us. I was quite confused. Your name is said like Chloe the Ray of Sunshine. I get it. Sad. No, not at all. Listen. You only need to look down and try and read my name, and you will be like, oh. I often make streamers struggle to say my name, and I often have to tell them how to say it. At least I could work out yours. Many streamers get very confused by mine. And it's perfect, because it opens up a way for me to talk with the streamers. I immediately get their attention. But welcome in. Thank you so much for the first time chat and for the follow. Very much appreciated. We're just doing a little bit of reading. Is it okay if you just call me Quilta? Sure. Most people refer to me as Ruadh, so just because my name is quite difficult to say, it's Ruadh Ua Quilta. Ruadh Ua Quilta. Yes, D calls me Mr. Ua, which I find very cute, I must say. But you can call me Quilta, that's absolutely fine. You can call me Orua, Rua. Many people do that one. Some people, I don't know, they just say strange noises in their best attempts. It's very sweet. You have a speech impediment, so you would struggle to say my name anyway. Oh no. That's okay. You can call me Quilta. That's perfect. Although, yes, you might be looking at that and being like, how does that make that noise, Quilta? It's Irish spelling. Yes, this is a little Ruru next to me. Little Ruru right there. He's very cute. He's very eepy and often very comfy by the fire. My iPhone's definitely gonna die before I finish this stream. I just know it. While the question of freedom was thus an essential concern of ancient thought, it was not explicitly connected to the concept of will, although the concept too... Oh no, wait, hang on, I read this. While that which is incited by something other than reason is not will but libido, Seneca took this one step further, arguing that the will acts irrationally when reason itself becomes enslaved to the passions. This view later became important for Augustine. As we noted above, the question of the will took on a special importance within Christianity because of the need to reconcile divine and human will. Scripture insists that God is both good and all-powerful. It also insists that all human beings have sinned and deserve to be punished. What is not clear is how these are compatible with one another. If God is omnipotent, how can human beings be responsible for anything at all? And if they are not responsible, how can they be guilty? If they are not guilty, how can they be justly punished? And if their punishment is not just, how can God be good? Ancient Christianity recognized this problem and struggled to find a solution. The Greek fathers first raised the question of the free will of the individual human beings in their struggle against the Stoics and Gnostics, arguing that the human will is free both before and after the fall. The notion of the freedom of the will within early Christianity, however, was still essentially rationalist, and saw the will as subordinate to either divine or human reason. Reason, in this sense, points to the will in a particular direction, and there is no diminution of divine or human freedom from doing what reason dictates. The will wills what reason tells it is good, and it thereby acts freely. Augustine was the first to assert that the will can supersede reason, arguing that the will can do evil even when the reason tells it this is wrong. Thank you so much, Canum, 6655, for the follow. Welcome in, welcome in. Where were we? Oh yes, here. In making this argument, he built on the idea that reason can become enslaved to libidinous passions first suggested by Cicero and Seneca. Augustine employed this notion of the will in his early struggles against the Manichaeans. No, I'm dodging. You can't get me, you can't get my nose. I blocked them. You didn't see, I blocked them with my book. You're poking me to get ready for hell diving in a little bit. I'll finish these 2 pages. You hit all but 2. I dodged them. I had invincibility frames. I dodge rolled. I can do a medium roll. I'm not too encumbered. If I take off my cloak and my inner, I can fast roll. No problem. That's such a cute little bee. That's a cute little bee. I'm almost done. It's pretty much just this page. Where were we? Oh yes. Augustine employed this notion of the will in his early struggles against the Manichaeans. The Manichaeans had suggested that if God were omnipotent, he must be the source not merely of good but also of evil. And if he were not the source of evil, then there must not be one God but 2, an evil creator and an evil redeemer. Augustine countered this argument by asserting the independence of the human will not as a foundation for human dignity, but in order to show that the source of evil lay not in God but in man. God grants humans freedom, and they freely choose to do evil. In this way, Augustine was able to make divine unity or simplicity compatible with divine goodness. The problem with this attribution of such freedom to man is that it might be construed to imply that just as humans choose to sin and therefore merit damnation, so they can choose not to sin and thereby earn salvation. This was precisely the conclusion that Pelagius drew. This idea, however, was anathema to Christians because it implied that Christ and his sacrifice were unnecessary. In his attacks upon this position, Augustine was forced to rethink his earlier notion of freedom. In the earlier debate, he used the term libero arbitrio. In the later debate, he sometimes used the term servum arbitrium, but more characteristically employed the phrase liberium arbitrium captivatum. The free will that had been taken captive by sin. Augustine thus did not abandon the idea of the freedom of the will that is essential to human responsibility, but asserted that it could not be effective without grace. While he believed that grace was necessary to salvation, he was also clear that once the bonds of sin were removed, the individual will had to will the good in order to merit salvation. Scholasticism revived and formalized this Augustinian notion of the will, and as a result was forced to confront the question that Augustine had papered over, that is, how human will could be free in a world ruled by an omnipotent and omniscient God. This proved difficult, Anselm, for example, denied that divine foreknowledge and predestination deprived humans of free will, while simultaneously asserting that events do happen by necessity. Bernard of Clairvaux denied that human will and divine will could each be a partial cause, asserting instead that each had its proper sphere, but what the natures of those spheres were and how they related to one another remained obscure. Bonaventure, too, thought that the will remained free, even in the face of divine preordination, because no external force limited it. But this did not answer the question of the necessitating internal sources of the will, and he thus solved the problem only by defining it out of existence. Aquinas, by contrast, sought to harmonize divine and human will by imagining they were both subordinate to reason. However, as we have seen, this rationalist solution opened up the question of God's absolute power, and thus his divinity. It was this claim that was so unacceptable to Scotus, Occam and their followers, for they saw it as a denial of God's power and divinity. Already in 1277, Henry of Ghent condemned any suggestion that the intellectual determined the will. Scotus similarly reasserted the primacy of will in both God and man, and the impossibility of subordinating God's will to reason. However, he did not explain how in this light the human and divine wills could be compatible with one another. And as we have seen, the nominalists themselves were divided on this crucial point. Within the nominalist movement, there were clearly those who put greater emphasis on divine omnipotence and preordination, and those who left greater space for human initiative. That said, it is often difficult to determine where different thinkers stood on the issue. The one thing that does seem relatively clear is that Beale moved considerably closer to Pelagianism than his predecessors. He argued, for example, that fallen reason and will were sufficient for humans to begin their journey to God. Grace was thus not strictly necessary for God, since God would save all those who did everything they could to lead a Christian life. Luther's Augustinian teacher Eugen was a member of the Beale school. It was a semi-Pelagianism practically embodied in the Fantiantibus principle that shaped and tormented the young Luther, and that an older Luther so decisively and vehemently rejected. And that brings us to the part of the chapter titled The Development of the Notion of Will in Luther's Thought, which will be quite interesting, I'm sure, but we'll have to wait for another day. So, I would like to thank you all very much for joining me today. It's always very nice to have a little bit of reading. I'm going to go and have a cup of tea and a couple of bickies, and then probably hop on and play some Helldivers, and I don't know, maybe fight bots or fight the new enemies or fight some bugs. I haven't fought bugs in a while. But I hope you guys enjoyed that reading. I hope those of you who are able are falling asleep nice and cozy, and those of you who just had me on the background enjoyed. Excuse me. I'll probably try and stream again tomorrow. Most likely you're not going to get a stream on Christmas Day or St. Stephen's Day. Maybe St. Stephen's Day. We'll see. We'll work something out, I'm sure. But for now, I think it may be time to try and find... No, I don't want to raid into someone doing massage ASMR. That doesn't sound very fun. What are my friends doing? What are they up to? Good night. Good night, Canum. Have a lovely sleep. You know who we're going to raid into, actually. He was here earlier. We're going to raid into Zan Parsniphead. Who was here earlier? He said hi, so we should, He has dork in his tags. That's cute. So he's a PNG. No, I've never caught one of his streams live. He's a prisoner. He's like a PNG prisoner. So we're gonna raid into him, I think. He's doing mostly just chilling out, it seems. Visiting hours. That's really funny. Hello, hello. Hello, Kaz Cats. Welcome. Thank you for the follow. Thank you for the stream. Have a good night. Thank you. It would be cool if anyone hasn't. And would like to, following would be greatly appreciated. And you guys can also find me. Hang on, I can hop into my own stream. Where is it? There we go. You can join the Discord and you can follow me on Twitter. Oh god, I can hear myself twice. Twitter. Oh no, I did that wrong. There we go. You guys can follow me there. But yeah, I hope to see you guys soon. Gareth Mila Mahagat and Slán Gafoil. And I will have you guys have a... If I don't see you before Christmas, I hope you guys have a lovely Merry Christmas. And get lots of nice gifts and all that type of stuff. So, bye bye.